So what are we up to today? Well, I'm going to show you how I made that guidon topper up there and this base for a guidon. Both lost foam cast in aluminum out of styrofoam. So first off, I think I need to apologize. This video is a little longer than normal, but stick with me till the end. You'll enjoy it the whole way through. The day started back at my hot wire cutter, where I used a razor blade to cut out paper forms of a spade so I could put the spade on the side of the skulls. Some pink insulation foam works great for this, and the hot wire will cut through the foam and stay right on the edge of the paper. As long as you keep a consistent speed, it cuts it clean. To make sure they were identical, I cut one, then eyeballed splitting them in half. To make the spades for the little skull, I take styrofoam heart stickers that you get at the craft store, manufacture my own little bottoms to them, and use the upside down heart to make a perfect spade. I don't think I have enough aluminum to make this giant skull in one shot, and then drilling through something solid that thick would be a total pain in the butt. So I decided to make the space for the guidon shaft in the styrofoam, even though it made a bit of a mess. Nothing my shop vac couldn't handle. Once I have the styrofoam mold made, it's time to use some Petrobond to give a good base to cast with. Putting the Petrobond through a standard kitchen sieve gives you a consistent texture, which gives you good quality finish on the part. With both of the Petrobond sand molds made, it's time to light the foundry. And under the glowing light of my lounge sign, we get to melting some metal. If you're a fan of the channel, you've seen this process before. I shut off the flame inside the foundry and used 2 steel hoops to pick up the crucible. I set it down on top of a cast iron pan into my homemade crucible, we'll call it a pouring tool. It's not quite tongs. It's more of a, well, it's a pouring tool. We'll go with that. And then you pour the molten metal right on top of the styrofoam that's encased in the Petrobond sand. And as you can see with this one, there was a lot of styrofoam, which gave off a lot of fire. I poured the large skull first, and I'm glad that I did because it took the entire crucible full of metal. That's 10 pounds of aluminum that went into this skull. Had I done the smaller skull first, there wouldn't have been enough left over to do the large skull, and I would have had a half pour or a short pour, which, you know, as it sounds, is a fail. I noticed after pouring the big skull that there was enough styrofoam vapor bleeding out through the sand that it was igniting against the hot can that I use as a headspace for the pouring. I just thought this looked neat. Figured I'd share. After refilling the crucible, I went on to pour the little skull to top the guidon with. I had plenty of excess metal, which allowed me to fill up my ingot trays full of little aluminum fish. But because I wasn't using a proper flask for this pour, I had a bit of a fail.
That's why I cast on plywood, not the driveway.
As you can see from this close-up, this is what a short pour looks like. Before the aluminum had time to solidify inside of the mold, it failed and dumped all over my plywood. That's alright though, because the big one worked just fine, and honestly, that's the one I was more concerned with. Almost 40 minutes after pouring that aluminum, and completely solid, it's still really, really hot. Now that that bit's sorted, it's time to make another mold for the little one that failed. Same process as before. Cut out my spades from little heart stickers, stick them to the side of a styrofoam skull, and encase them in Petrobond sand. I'd had enough for that evening, so the next day I got to melting more aluminum. And yes, the failed half skull went into the pot to be remelted. Nothing is wasted. This time I had the little guy in my proper flask, and it held up just fine. "20 minutes after the pour, break it out of the sand, and it's silly hot, so I cool it down with the garden hose. This time, a complete success. Use a wire brush to clean off all the muck and burnt styrofoam residue, and then polish and shine and clean. Cut it off from the sprue, and it's a success. I think it came out pretty good. Be sure to check out some of my other videos. Links will be on the end screen, and all the information's in the description. Take care now. Thanks for watching.